We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Scholars Wrestling Show, episode 466. I am your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff. Joining us this week, as always, the OG Undisputed Scholar himself and our new Scholars of Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. He is Scholar Tarek. Scholar Tarek, do I even need to say anything at this point?
Your intro is good enough, sir. Yes, I said last week, Goldie is coming back to the Undisputed Scholars, whether it be me, whether it be Scholar Brian, but I had a near perfect prediction weekend. Only one. I got a perfect card with King of the Ring, which definitely helped me. Thank you, Liv Morgan. Mwah, Jersey represent. And near perfect. Double or nothing. Only one. Only one red dot covered in that sea of blue. Ah, just it feels so good to know that even though Charlie did successfully cash out on me, revenge is a bitch. Ah,
And just
for
like that, the playing field is even once again. No more surprises, no more anything. It's a
oh,
Mad
I
Rush ad title just like it's always meant to be.
which begs the question. You did this to when I lost the title. Doesn't your shoulder feel a little lighter? What
It
happened?
does. It
What happened to the
does.
party championship, Jeff?
We had a watch party for wrestling.
We did have a watch party for
We
wrestling.
had a watch party for wrestling. The party championship was on the line, and lo and behold, no great reign lasts forever. I did lose to the party championship to Scholar Jeremy's mighty kind wife, but you know what? It's close enough by that's come
And
the next week, come the next watch party we've got. It's not too far away.
it was very close. Very close to resting on my shoulders. It was down to me, Jeremy, and Clarissa. It was very close. It was the luck of the draw, and luckily Clarissa won first, but with the triple threat of Chris Jericho, Hook, and Shibata, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it was Shibata. And luck of the draw, she happened to got the pick first, and she was the smart one and chose Jericho. I got the second round of Hook, which was a better option than, or had a better chance of winning than Shibata. Sorry, Jeremy, but also not sorry because you may not have won the party championship, but at least you got to take it home with you because your wife won it. Again, congratulations. And Tarek Two Belts will show up again one day.
Yeah, I'm very glad. I for one am very glad you didn't win it because otherwise you're it's if you actually won a second belt that night, your ego would be insufferable and roughly the size of Utah. I'm glad we didn't get that.
uh yeah, you're lucky. You are lucky. It did not
That was heavy
just
sarcasm. We cannot
oh
stop your ego. We know
oh
this.
oh of course. No, you cannot stop my ego. Beep. Okay.
Despite our very best interests and intent, we cannot stop the ego. And apparently, we can't stop this whole weekend of wrestling and pay per views and good old fashioned wrestling shows because we had some very interesting developments this past week as a whole. So, with that all being said, let's review the week it was, starting with the WWE side of things, looking down King and Queen of the Ring, which featured such amazing matches and interesting outcomes, many of which we predicted. We had Gunther winning King of the Ring, which I'm sure delighted you to no end. And
Well, the
frankly, I
match
think it delighted
itself,
all of
yes.
us.
The match itself was a delight. It just really sucks that they had to have that finish at the end, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Oh wait, we are here.
Yeah, we're talking about
You
King of the
started
Ring right now.
yeah, no, I mean like you start I thought we were just gonna do like match order, but no, we're talking about the King of the Ring first. Okay.
Show us
But
King of the Ring as a whole. Let's do it.
King of the Ring, okay. As a whole, okay. No breakdown. Oh, that's perfectly fine with me. All right. So yeah, with the Gunther and Randy Orton match, that really like that was like on the brink of being my match of the night because just the chemistry between these two was just very entertaining. And it just I love the story that was going into it was just Randy Orton trying to get on Gunther's level of intensity. But obviously when you've been in WWE as long as he has, it just there's only so much his body could take. And that was the big story point of his of this match. And the only downside and the only thing that people are just constantly talking about is just that that botched ending with Randy's shoulder wide off the mat. And props to the referee realizing the situation, but and so he just adjusts himself to make it look like okay, he couldn't like looking at the one shoulder down. It's like working in the moment. I respect that. It just really sucks that now that's the center of point. But knowing Triple H and his booking and how they did how it was just okay, how they were able to pivot situations like this. I mean, we've seen it happen at the build for WrestleMania. I am very confident that they're able to work this into their show, into storyline aspects, which we're going to get that rematch between Randy Orton and Gunther at some point, probably
Oh yeah,
sooner
for
rather
sure.
than later. Even as just a simple exhibition match. Uh, Either way, it was a really good match. Really disappointed about that ending, about that finish, but it was inevitable. Gunther won the King of the Ring, and then as he shows up on Monday Night Raw, he spits out the facts. He made the Intercontinental Championship prestigious again when it was at a point of irrelevancy. Facts. He won the King of the Ring in a tournament that helped bring prestige back to that title after years of ridicule and mock. Facts. And now that we're going to use this to build his SummerSlam match in the inevitable world title, I am very happy about it. And I just love what they did, like his confrontation with Damian Priest on Raw in response to this. Right now, I'm just focusing on the storyline of Randy Orton and Gunther. He points out, yeah, you didn't beat Randy Orton. You will have that match. It's like, you don't understand the business, which I'm just like, I'm pretty sure he does. That's why he's getting all these accolades. So sorry, Priest. You're not really being the strong one here. And when we eventually get to that title match at SummerSlam, which for me personally, I think it is going to be Damian Priest versus Gunther at SummerSlam. But that's just me. It's now we actually are getting that groundwork to when the time period between in July and August for when SummerSlam happens. I can't wait to see where we're going to go with that.
Absolutely. Gunther is rapid, or I wouldn't even say rapidly. He's already in that place where you can pretty much put him against anybody and he will absolutely knock it all out of the park. And really, whenever they're ready to put him in any sort of major title feud for either of the two main world titles, he's going to knock it out of the park easy.
It just is really a relief to actually finally see him elevate from the Intercontinental Championship title picture to now the main event level. With now he's talking with the world champion. He's now I say interacting with Damian Priest, but what I loved about the segment on Raw is that when Damian Priest come out and try and talk some shit, Gunther just looks at him, looks at Priest, and just walks out because he's like, I had my piece with you, champ. I don't have anything to say to him because I've already beaten him. He's below me. Come to me. I'll see you at SummerSlam. Peace. I loved that. It just shows like he's the player. He's a true player of the game. And then we get Priest and Drew McIntyre nonsense, which fun segment, but that we don't need to really talk about that because that really has no real outcome from King of the Ring.
No, and there's certainly a lot of other more interesting fallouts that is, I guess you could say more fully developed coming out of King of the Ring. least of not which not being that Nia Jax winning the Queen of the Ring for this year. And I hate to use the word dominant, but yeah, surprisingly dominant fashion. She has absolutely been on a real roll lately where she just is looking like an absolute tank steamrolling everybody. And yeah, I gotta say, I'm surprised these words are gonna leave my mouth, but lately I have been impressed with Nia Jax.
As have I.
Which is new
Uh,
for me.
mhm. Yeah, I've been impressed with Nia Jax as well. Ever since she came back, she has shown that she has, in that time period while she was away, that she worked on her skills. And she's now not sloppy. She's now being booked to where Vince wanted her back in the dark ages. But now she's looking dominant. She's facing top stars and actually really earning that spot to be a top dominant force to be reckoned with. And I look at this Queen of the Ring tournament as WWE's way of saying, you are worked hard. We've noticed the change. We've noticed your improvement, and this is your reward for it. Thank you for what you thank you, and congratulations. And we really can't go anything further than that. Other the match was really fun. It was a very well told David versus Goliath-esque story, and that to be real, as much as Brian wanted to actually really uh, see Lyra win, it just this was one of those cases where you look strong in defeat and that they do have plans for you. And there's only a matter of time now with Becky Lynch gone for a while. I think she's her momentum of really showing that she is going to be a top level star in the near future. Yeah, it was very well done. Can't really say anything about Nia Jax so far because at the time of this recording, we haven't watched SmackDown yet because that's tomorrow. But it's just now leading to that point. It was inevitable that they're gonna have her versus Bailey at SummerSlam because ever since she showed up on SmackDown after the draft, she made it clear, I'm going for you, Bailey. I'm going for this WWE Women's Championship. And between now and then, who knows what they're gonna do?
For sure. Yeah, but in the meantime, it almost seems like WWE is in a holding pattern in the best possible way, at least for most of the card. And that does extend to, in my mind, to Lyra Valkyria as well, where yeah, they definitely see a lot of promise in her for sure,
Did I say
undeniably.
her name wrong before? Lyra? Did I say Ira? I don't remember. I feel like I said her
I
name wrong.
even if you did, I heard Lyra. It was just so quick, like whatever, Ira Valkyria, whatever.
Lyra.
Point, no matter
Ira.
what you call her,
It's like gang
I
bang
think
dang.
yeah, what you said. And you just had to bring attention to that one too. But yeah, either way, Lyra Valkyria, it's a good thing in my mind that she didn't win this. Like you don't need to. You got a good thing going here with her. You don't need to rush it. You don't have to be like, oh yeah, look, here's a brand new hotness. Go to it. Yeah, yeah. This is your new hero. Yay! Like, thankfully, the Triple H era does absolutely seem to have a better impression of pacing and not rushing things and having
Mhm.
confidence in your talent and your show overall, that you don't need to just like hit the turbo button on everybody that you just like really want to see. You don't need to do that. You're WWE. You should have confidence in your product, and
Mhm.
absolutely shows, including for most of the women's division right now, including, yes, I'm going to go there, Liv Morgan defeating Becky Lynch for the Women's World Championship. And oh boy, was this drama between her and Dominik just all over the place. And it was so ambiguously, and it was done so you think you know, but you may not, but you think you do, but you want to know. it was done so much better than I thought it was going to be over this past week. And speaking of having confidence in your talent, you trust the not only does an angle like this show that you've got confidence in the talent that you're putting on screen, but it also just the way that it's shot, the way it's written out. This tells me that not only do I have confidence in the in-ring talent, but the WWE today also has just as much confidence in the creative department, in the writing room, and in the production booth, and in just the cinematography of the people behind the camera as well. There's confidence everywhere, and it shows. Am I making sense?
Oh, very much so. When you said like the cinematography and just like the production aspect, where I'm watching this show, and the first thing that popped in my mind was I do not miss Kevin Dunn one little bit. I am so glad that that trash visuals is gone. No more zooming in and quick cuts, quick cuts, quick cuts. Oh, that it came to that point where it was just so unbearable to watch. And now we have this production, this creative, this talent that have such freedoms and just cooperation with one another, that we're getting a product that is just so entertaining to watch. It's not just a one storyline. It's not just a one storyline main focus while the rest of it doesn't matter. Everything on this show matters. Even the stuff in the background, which was such a big benefactor of me choosing Liv Morgan last week, with the whole hinting of her interactions with Dominik Mysterio, her coming out of the car with Finn Balor, her talking with JD McDonough this week. Although I will admit, when it comes to this storyline, I don't, out of the entire Judgment Day storyline and Liv, I'm the only thing that's not working for me is just the position of Finn. The fact that he is now at the level of JD and Dominik as the point of like the lackeys is something that just doesn't fit with me. And I threw it last week of him throwing like jabs of wanting like small tidbits of storytelling about him wanting a world title shot. I hope that comes sooner rather than later, because I don't like Finn deserves so much better in this storyline, and I just feel like it's just not working, at least on his part. But when it going back to Liv Morgan, what Jersey represent, this was such good storytelling on her side of things, because the entire time you have the commentary pointing out in the Royal Rumble she was the runner up, in Elimination Chamber she was the runner up, in the Battle Royal that to crown the new women's world champion she's been the runner up. She has just been being positioned as number 2 for so long, that now you got, even though Dominik accidentally, but we're not really sure on that one. They kind of left that part ambiguous, because depending on where how the audience reacts, there's like it's like the mystery. It's like a mystery, a murder mystery, and you think, oh, could it be this guy as the murderer, or this one? There's like different alternative takes on where they can go with this story. At least in Dominik's case, uh, depending on what the audiences are feeling at the time. But using Dominik as a part of the story was one of the big things that led me to predict Liv Morgan in the first place. I may have not said it last week, but as I pointed out in our scholars chat, if I'd said something, it would have obviously tempted either you or Brian, Charlie or Jeremy to be like, he makes a very valid point. I'm going to go with Liv Morgan to win because of what Tarek said. I am a player of the game. I've come to win, and it worked out in my favor by being the only person who predicted Liv Morgan to win. And again, I'm so happy with this. I'm happy with the results, not just because of the prediction, right? I got correct, but just storyline aspects. It just makes perfect sense for this Liv Morgan revenge tour to really start picking up momentum, starting with winning the women's world title, possibly taking away Rhea's sub in Dom, and with her talking to other members of the Judgment Day and the hinting of Damian Priest distancing himself from Judgment Day as well, which again, I hate that the one that's not really looking good out of this is Finn Balor. But yeah, and Liv could possibly start taking control of the Judgment Day, basically really sinking in that revenge of taking everything from Rhea, adding so much fuel to that storyline to when we actually get Rhea's return and their inevitable match at SummerSlam. Mwah, great storytelling.
First, two things. First of all, in regards to you calling the whole added twist of Dominik Mysterio getting involved and keeping it to yourself so that no one else would jump on that bandwagon and cost you any titles. Well, to quote Dan Aykroyd and Tommy Boy, save it a flavor because it sure isn't going to happen again.
Oh, I'm
Second of all,
savoring that flavor, sir. I am savoring that flavor.
well,
Mwah,
good. I
mwah,
told you
mwah.
to.
It
Do it.
tastes
Do it.
delicious. And oh, you don't want to know what I've been doing with her these last few nights, fool. You have no idea.
Oh, believe me, we know. We're trying to burn it out of our brains with a hot
And I'll just
fire
keep burning
poker.
it back. I'll just keep burning it back. It's in there. It's in there. Expect the pictures in our chat soon.
Please don't. I will remove myself from all group chats, even the ones that you're not a part of. Anyway, moving on. Please be moving on.
Well, what was the second thing?
The second thing is whether you called it or not, I'm legitimately impressed with this whole Liv Morgan thing, especially after she'd retained it over Becky Lynch, who we still don't know what's going to happen with her right now.
Oh, I'm convinced. I'm convinced she's
Destination
just.
unknown.
I'm convinced she's just using this time off to be a mom and be a wife. This
Most
is basically
likely.
her this is just her taking a vacation. It's she's not gonna go like if she's not gonna go to AEW. If anything, she'll probably stop by in TNA just because of the working deal that they're having with WWE and NXT. That's the only thing I can actually see her doing. But to say, oh, she's Rebecca Quinn, oh, lead, nope,
I will
nope, nope,
say
nope.
though, it is an interesting idea to contemplate. I don't think it's likely, but at the same time, it's pro wrestling in 2024. Very few things are impossible these days. So, impossible? No. Not likely? Yes, I'd say. But no matter how you slice it, when we're talking about the whole Liv Morgan Dominik Mysterio storyline, much like you said, this can go so many different ways. This this really does feel like an unpredictable storyline where even though we have a sense of where it might go, we can just as easily be wrong here. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of what makes this whole storyline that exciting. Because it's not only is it unpredictable, but it seems like no matter what we get, unless someone really screws the pooch on this one, no matter what we get, we're going to get something pretty sizable.
Agreed. But what do you? Am I wrong about the whole thing with Finn Balor? Is this something I'm just that only I can see?
Let me put it to you this way: with given the state of all members of the Judgment Day, respectively, I feel like whatever is or is not happening with Finn Balor isn't really catching my eye, and it's not necessarily a good thing, nor is it a bad thing. Given the longevity that someone like Finn Balor has, I feel like he's almost in a Teflon type position where if they just position him right, like the next week, he's back to being a threat again. Whereas other members of the Judgment Day, if the Judgment Day were to say dissolve, I feel like almost every other member of the Judgment Day is more in trouble of losing their identity than if the Judgment Day stay together. I'd say the most safe members of the Judgment Day who would be okay on their own would most likely be Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley. Rhea can
I would
just
add
be
Damian
Rhea.
Priest to that list too.
Well, yeah, that's why I said the two most likely. They're all likely to
Mm-hmm.
bounce back on their feet. JD McDonough being the very bottom of that list. But I still feel like if Judgment Day did indeed fall apart, the split would absolutely impact certain people more than others. And I just at this point, I'm just not convinced that Finn Balor is anyone that you need to worry about at the moment.
I'm looking forward to when Finn Balor goes back to his like his NXT oh, oh. I don't know what that theme song is called, but just the one that he's been using,
I have
but
no
like
idea.
pre Judgment Day.
I think
I
it
miss
was
that
called
theme
like
song.
"Catch Your Breath" or something like that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
phrase that's coming to mind. But either way, I personally am not convinced that a Judgment Day split is going to happen anytime soon. Liv may threaten it. They may leave the door open in case they want to cross that bridge, which I don't think they will. But no matter how you slice it, I think that if anything, Liv is going to be more about just like sowing discord, sowing like with all using the tension between the Judgment Day to like, oh yeah, Damian Priest, you stuck up, and yeah, you're the real leader of Judgment Day. Maybe she's like snaking her way into Dominik's ear, like, yeah, I know you were always the real heart and soul behind the Judgment Day. You really ought to know that mommy's not on top, you are, and yada yada. Like
It's great
Judgment
manipulation, great character.
Judgment
That's the
Day
sign of a great heel that Liv Morgan is playing.
Judgment Day will absolutely still exist in some form or another. But now that you brought that up, I do have a scholar's quick talk. When the inevitable Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley match does end up happening, given the positioning and how well loved everyone is, my question to you is who's the heel in this match?
Obviously, Liv Morgan. She, they're already positioning her as the heel. When Rhea Ripley comes back, she's going to have the biggest pop of the night. Well, I wouldn't say of the night, but she's going to have one of the biggest pops of the night. She is, excuse me, she is just so over that when she comes back, yeah, it's going to base. This is going to be her big baby face return. Uh, for me, the real question is which side are they going to choose with Dominik? Are they going to have him still side with Rhea Ripley or have him turn on her to side him with Liv Morgan because with Rhea Ripley coming back as such a big dominant baby face, it's also very hard to have her associated with Dominik Mysterio, one of the best natural heels that WWE has right now. And it'll be very hard to see him as a baby face, at least for a good long while, because he's just too good a heel to uh for this baby face turn to really work. I feel like if he's gonna turn face again, it has to be with Rey Mysterio. Uh
I will,
in
you
this
know what?
case,
I think I need to take it a step further than that. I think you kind of answered your own question there. If you want Dominik, if it comes down to Dominik Mysterio being a heel and remaining as that just like super hot, hated heel. The only path you can take is to pair him up with Liv Morgan. Because at this point, everyone loves mommy too much. If you
Mhm.
leave him with mommy for too much longer, he's eventually going to be a baby face by default. So if you want to leave him that as that just like absolute heat magnet that he's been, you pair him with Liv Morgan and be like, okay, yeah, you don't cheat on mommy. You're the scummiest of the scum. Or conversely, to answer your other point, if you want him to turn super fate, if you want him to turn babyface again, I'm not convinced you need Rey Mysterio to do it. If you need, if you want to put, if you need Liv Morgan to make someone like Dominik Mysterio a heel, I think it also stands to reason that if you want Dominic to be a face, conversely, you keep him loyal to a face Rhea Ripley, and she rather will make Dominic face by default, like a almost like a face you love to boo, like almost like I'm hesitant to compare him to Kurt Angle, but that's really the biggest comparison that's coming to mind. Like a good guy that's still fun to boo, that you still boo, but not because you hate him, but because it's fun to boo him. Does that make sense?
I get that. I get that. And I feel like one real way to really make like if you do decide to keep him, actually not keep, if you do decide to have him go with Jesus Christ, go with Liv Morgan, and if you still want him to be sympathetic, is yeah, keep this whole Liv Morgan manipulating him to the point where he's thinking he is the dom on this. She's making him think all that it's what he wants. He's the top factor. Well, he's been the sub for Rhea Ripley. Like he's when it comes to him and Rhea Ripley, he's the bottom. Liv Morgan is making him believe that he's on top on this. So it's like basically Liv Morgan mind fucking him to the point where it's like, well, she is treated better. I'm the dominant one. I'm the one in charge. And again, it's like just he's just so easily manipulative that you'd be like, this poor young fool. You, you do feel kind of sorry for him because he's such a weak mind that Liv Morgan is using her force on him.
Then again, I don't think you're going to have any. I think anyone's going to have any pity for Dominic at this point. He's especially given how well loved that Rhea is. If he actually is cheating on Rhea, and like everyone is going to get real damn defensive of mommy. Like the lines will be drawn in the sand, and the heat is going to be absolutely freaking nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
But with all that being said, with everything we've seen over that that day of wrestling and the aftermath, this new version of WWE King and Queen of the Ring as a whole, if you had to give it a beard rating, what would you give it? What do you think?
If I had to give it a beard rating, I honestly would give it a 4.5 because the botch really did hurt the Randy Orton Gunther match. And it just sucks that that's been the response. But overall, it really was a near perfect show when you have the Liv Morgan Rhea Ripley, when you have the Intercontinental Triple Threat match with Bronson Reed, Chad Gable, and Sami Zayn. Just that storyline alone was one of the actually the big highlights for me that night watching it. I loved that triple threat match. I love the story. I love that Chad Gable is slowly becoming one of the big top heels of the Raw brand. To when Otis finally decides to not listen to him, he's Otis is gonna get that huge pop. It's gonna make him like a top contender for the Intercontinental Championship. Uh, Bronson Reed, unfortunately, got he was there just to get pinned. As much as Brian and I were saying, wait, I don't want him to be pinned, but at least he's still involved in like he had that match with Otis. Uh, but yeah, great Intercontinental storyline with Chad Gable and Sami Zayn. I can't. It's just that storyline just keeps getting better and better. Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul was also a really great showing of just we just have to keep pointing it out. Logan Paul is just he is a natural. Uh, and working with Cody is such a great thing for him. Just working with someone who is at a different level. It's like, yeah, you're good, but I'm better type of ordeal. Great. It was just great back and forth action with Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes. Overall, just a great show. If that botched ending didn't happen, and with that being the big focal point, again, hopefully WWE pivots that to their favor, like how they did with The Rock and Cody Rhodes, then it'll probably change my rating down the line, seeing where they go from here, especially when you know that inevitable rematch between Gunther and Randy Orton is going to happen. Not for King of the Ring, just a simple exhibition match between the two, and that's going to be awesome. So, yeah, if that botched ending didn't happen, it would have been a solid 5 for me, solid go face. But because that ending really like became such a big vocal point for people and not the match itself, which again, great match. I actually watched that match again. So good. Gunther is at that level where it's perfectly perfectly natural to be hit have him in a match with Randy Orton. I loved every second of it. I loved the show. So yeah, a very like crossing like on the verge of crossing the finish line, full beard for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a full beard as well. Not a 4.5 or anything. Just a straight 4 for me. And it's not because of the finish of the Gunther match. To me, it's just more of a it was a good show, but it wasn't it didn't make too many unpredictable out of left field choices. It was good, but it wasn't perfect, but it was just pretty darn good. So I would just give it a straight up 4 out of 5 full beard. That being said, that was the WWE side of things. Next up, we do also have the second of the two major wrestling shows from the weekend. We have AEW Double or Nothing. And this was just as you normally do with AEW pay per views. We're jamming packed, or everything is jam packed top to bottom with just match after match, wrestling after wrestling. And this one, we got some pretty interesting results, not the least of which was Will Ospreay defeating Roderick Strong to become the international champion, which I admit it, this one, I wasn't entirely sure about this one, but man, I'm glad to be wrong.
Oh yes, I'm now looking forward to seeing what Will Ospreay does with this international championship reign. And it's already off to a great start with him becoming number one contender for the AEW World Championship at Forbidden Door.
You
Okay.
know, it's interesting that we got this result that we did with we again getting that number one contendership for Forbidden Door, because days ago when I was anticipating recording this episode of the show with you, I was going to make a prediction. I was going to predict that the feud of the summer was going to be Osprey versus Swerve, and this just cemented it for me. I'll go into greater detail later on, but especially after seeing this result, I'm convinced that one of their biggest feuds for the summer is going to be Swerve versus Osprey, with the eventual result being regardless of the winner. The eventual result will be merging the international and AEW titles. Because I personally think they've got way too many titles right in the AEW right now. They already have more than one mid card title. So there's really, I don't think there's as much need for yet another mid card title. And I feel like this is just a way to inflate the stature of both of these guys by bringing them in a feud for like unified titles and adding more prestige to the AEW championship and all that implies really. But regardless of whether or not they do that, I am still convinced, especially after this past Dynamite and what we saw at Double or Nothing. I'm convinced Ospreay versus Swerve is still going to be the feud of the summer for AEW.
Agreed. I don't agree that they're going to merge the titles. Uh, I if they're gonna do anything, it's probably just gonna be Will Ospreay doing what Omega did and just collecting titles. Uh, I see that happening more than unifying the titles. But I do agree with you. There are just way too many titles in AEW, and there's even talks about them adding an intergender tag titles, which I just have to ask why. What the hell do we need those for? Um,
Add a unique act to the show. Like I do agree with what Tony Khan did say that it would give a more unique flavor to the shows and what AEW brings to the wrestling world as a whole. And I do believe that yeah, someone is going to need to take a chance on such a thing. And if it comes down to having yet another mid card title versus a more unique title system and division like this, I'm going to take the unique route every single time. I'm going to take the intergender title route. Because if you think about it, AEW, yeah, there's certain things you gotta have. You gotta have tag titles, you gotta have world heavyweight titles, you gotta have women's championships. But I'd say that there's other places where AEW is sort of innovating, and that's one of their, I don't want to say it's one of their biggest strengths, but I'm going to say it's one of their more distinct ones. Like the addition of a trios championship, getting that international flavor to the equation. While I don't think everyone is on board yet, I'd say if AEW were to implement intergender tag titles, that if anything, even whether you like it or you don't, you gotta admit it is unique.
it's unique, and I just don't think it's necessary because it's just all it does is just
Necessary? No.
all it.
Interesting? Memorable? Possibly. And I'm
Hmm,
willing to put a bet on possibly.
uh, may, if AEW was in a better position, fan reaction wise, sure, but because people are still at that point where AEW is just not hot enough, so whatever they do is just gonna just keep facing heavy criticism. But even just that aside, I just don't think I just there's it doesn't work. It just doesn't work to have an that kind. It's unique, yes. I just don't think it's relatively necessary. Just it just will take time. It'll just take more TV time away from other championships, like said trios titles, like said tag team titles, even though they're on the biggest stable right now, the Young Bucks. Basically, you're just basically adding a third team title, tag title, trios titles, intergender titles with the three mid card titles, the international title, the TNT title, and the continental title, which it kind of is, even though really it isn't. Uh, and then you have the world title. It's having basically seven titles where almost every one of your matches is just some form of title match. or 7 titles, and then you have the 2 women's titles. You have 9 titles. And then I don't even include the Ring of Honor titles, which is pretty much their equivalent of NXT. So it's again,
which is why
unbelievable.
which is why I am not opposed to the idea of them unifying the international and AEW titles.
I just don't think that's good. It's a good idea is like to start merging some of these titles together. I'm just not convinced that's what he's planning. Uh,
It
all
may
this
be
what
not
this
be what
really
he's
does.
planning, but I do think it's probably going to be for the best. Like you explained, there's too many titles, and they gotta do something with more of them, or they need to start getting rid of some. I think this is a golden opportunity to do just that, at least in one particular case. Do I
With
think
Tony
it's actually going to happen? No. I'm just saying I think it's a good idea to consider, in my opinion.
well, well now that they've shown that Tony Khan is open to making Dynamite 3 hours, the chances of them actually merging titles is now just a, like that percentage has gone way down. Um,
Not necessarily. It
I,
depends on how they end up handling it. Because
I
right
look at this
now,
more as like now that Will Ospreay is he's your international champion, and now he's won that point to where he could become AEW World Champion. All it's doing is just now making the international title seem more important now. Now that it's that champion is going after the world champion. He's in the same program as the world champion, even though let's be real, I love Swerve, but I don't he's not like the main story of AEW. He's like the fourth most interesting story going on in AEW. The other things are just uh the return of MJF is one of the biggest stories, which
I'm gonna say
that
the biggest right now, anyway.
I will just that return was just absolutely amazing after his that match with Osprey and Strong. First we get Adam Cole, baby, boom, uh, coming in doing his typical promo, and MJF coming in and kicking him in the balls and basically putting their feud on hold right now until Adam Cole gets better. Uh, and then you come back and do that fiery promo, which it was such a good promo. What he said was just so great. And how do they continue that? By having him by announcing that he'll show up next week. That's honestly when they had that video and say, hell, he'll MJF returns on Dynamite next week. It was my equivalent of Samoa Joe winning the world title, and then the next Dynamite that you and I went to in January, and he didn't show up. All we got was just a backstage promo at the pay-per-view where he won it. I got that. It was that level of like, oh bullshit. Go that's going to be one of the big rate things that gives you a big spike in ratings, and you choose not to do it. Oh, that come on. But
But then again, on the flip side, that's exactly why you hype it up so that
I
you do get more people coming in and say, okay, yeah, it's guaranteed we're going to get MJF on our screens. We're going to get another kick ass promo. So, time to switch that dial, time to hit that DVR, time to whatever, time to
he'll
actually
he'll
watch the
announce
show.
he'll announce himself in the Owen Hart tournament. That's what he's going to do next week. Uh but yeah, I'm glad MJF's back. I don't like his Triple H-esque attire. Hopefully
Yeah,
that's just a one-time deal.
I think it is. I think it's more
apparently
of a
we're in the minority on that one. A lot of people actually love that he changed his look. For me personally, I don't like it.
I thought
Uh,
it was a neat little reference to, again, given how meta that MJF can get and will do again. I just thought that was a fun little, like, okay, take that, Hunter. I'm staying with AEW. I got skin in the game now. Yada yada yada.
Come on, man, his AEW tattoo wasn't enough. Jesus. Um,
Oh come on, denim's cheap.
sure.
Denim and fake leather is relatively cheap. You probably got the
All right,
front.
let's see.
Probably is the same jacket from like the Goodwill or something. Like, come on. It was just a little nod. It's MJF being a magnificent bastard. It's what he does. So it's like, is it going to be a regular everyday thing? I highly doubt it. But for the time and place that we got it, I just thought it was some innocent fun.
Sure. Let's see. What was after that? Let's see.
Well, there were a lot of matches, but in terms of
Oh yeah, it was the
highlights,
uh it's great this the Bang Bang Gang won against Death Triangle and the return of Juice Robinson. Hopefully they'll actually go back to being Bullet Club Gold because that'll just be much easier for me to say.
no,
uh
it's just like so many other things in life. It just takes practice. The more you just gotta say it more and not screw it up.
let's see. Timeless Tony Storm beating Serena Deeb. That was a very fun match. I just love how much the Vegas crowd was so behind Tony Storm. I mean, at this point, everyone's behind Timeless Tony Storm. I loved it. I love her character. I love her. She is just a very attractive woman. And poor Serena Deeb coming in this one supposed to be the face, but everyone's just like, no, no, we like the heel. I'm sorry, but not really sorry. So Tony, Tony, Tony.
See, there's the same answer to the Rhea Ripley conundrum. Like, they're heels, but they're just too good at their damn job, and you end up loving them for it.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Which
Orange Cassidy. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, just given how weird some of these new dynamics are, I'm really wondering if what's going to happen between Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa at this point. Like, is there going to be a double turn? Are they actually going to try and make Mina a heel? Are we going to see more actual? Are they going to double down and try and do more heelish behavior on Tony? So that, oh no, the spicy Japanese bisexual lady is going to rescue Mariah May from the evil clutches of the Timeless One or something. There's too many unknown and just really fresh seeming dynamics to all of this, and it's just making these kinds of angles just seem, well, really fresh. I'm
Mm-hmm.
digging it.
At least where it's like it'll shut all the people's where are the stories? Uh, it'll shut that crowd up. Let's see.
Who are we kidding? That crowd never was paying attention to the show anyway.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Orange Cassidy defeating Trent Beretta. I think Trent Beretta is gonna be the one who ends up joining Don Callis after Orange Cassidy tore up the contract on Dynamite. Uh, Jericho defeating Hook and Shibata. Yeah, defeating Shibata. With uh Brian Keith joining the Learning Tree now. Okay.
Gives
TV time
them.
TV time was a great was is a great is a funny Easter egg to for all the Jericho critics, but okay, I know it's like there's still there I'm still not a fan of it. At least what he's doing. I like the one positive that I am getting out of it is now Samoa Joe taking Hook under his wing. I can't wait to see what they do there.
Now that's a learning tree.
Now that yeah, that is a learning tree. Uh this is a fun one to discuss. John Moxley defeating Takeshita for in the Eliminator match. I made this perfectly clear when we watched this. I hated this result. I thought it was just completely out of left field for Takeshita, and I just think it's just a cheap way for John Moxley to get the upper hand and win. But seeing some people's review of this show and how they explained it actually turned me around on this angle. With the story going that they had at Double or Nothing is that with Will Ospreay not listening to Don Callis and uh what's the name of the move that he was that's Ospreay's hesitant? Turncoat?
Oh, Hidden Blade?
Hidden is it the Hidden Blade?
No,
Okay.
maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Basically, he was whatever the move that was that hurt quote that hurt Danielson in their match. Uh, he was hesitant on using it. Don Callis was trying to be like, no, no, do this, end him. But Will Ospreay didn't listen to him, and he ended up winning. And you have this match with John Moxley and Takeshita. Takeshita's doing absolutely great in this one. He's really putting hurt John Moxley through hell or high water in this match. And then once Don Callis tells him, get the chairs, he listens to what Don Callis is telling him, and that ends up biting him in the ass at the end. So it's fun storytelling that of the drama going on inside the Don Callis family to the point where when I was looking at it on that angle, it actually made me warm up to this result, of even though it ended up costing me a perfect weekend. But I digress.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's so many different little subtleties here that did I pick up on every single one of them? No, but it still seemed acceptable to me, and I did not see this as enough of a detriment to take away from from the show or the result. Like, I'd much rather take a result like this than just have another like dusty finish on pay per view.
mhm,
That to me is even worse.
agreed. All right, and next up pretty much comes my match of the night. I love this. I loved this match because I was just so invested. Adam Copeland defeating Malachi Black for the TNT Championship,
This one was
and
very well done. I'm not sure if I can fully get behind it as my match of the night, but I can't disagree with your pick either because these guys absolutely made the most of their time. And so did Gangrel.
so did Gangrel. Oh, it's so funny because people are saying this is what he pitched for his match with Finn Balor, and they told him no. And now you have him in AEW basically pitching the exact same idea. And they're just like, you have Tony Khan going, okay. I loved it.
We'll,
I loved seeing Gangrel.
we'll
I
give
nerded
Gangrel a
out.
check. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. The only bad thing that really came out of this was that spot with Adam Copeland jumping off the top of the cage and literally
Yeah.
just landing on his feet and just completely destroying his legs. It was, I don't know, we don't know what happened, why he did that, and people are comparing it to when Randy Savage did the exact same thing at Halloween Havoc. I believe they said 97 of him having jumping off the cage and just landing on his feet, and it's just the whole thing. You're jumping off a what is it, like a 20-foot cage? Your legs are gonna get effed up from this. So that's what happened. It really sucks that he had to relinquish the title. I actually was really hoping that they gave the title to Jack Perry just to be a good heel story. Which I got to ask you, how do you feel about the Christopher Daniels being basically Tony Khan's avatar for TV?
I am good with it because obviously you need people who need to represent the good portions of the office, names that people like, names that people want to get behind in an era where the past year or so has been just infected with just like weird stories, bad morale, or at least perceptions of it, backstage drama, whatever. And I appreciate seeing these kinds of these kinds of stories told using figures like Chris Daniels, who has been a favorite of mine since college, frankly. I keep wanting to see them do as much as they possibly can with someone like that. I honestly wish he was still a main eventer. At his age, yeah, I'd say that time has long passed. But in order for him to be used in a way like this, that I think it's absolutely making the most of his kinds of talent. Where from fans of our generation, rather, excuse me, who when they first started watching TNA, and then the Fallen Angel was just like one of the big three guys. It's good to see him in their role like this, where they're absolutely making the most of him. And he's not just being left behind and just forgotten like so many other super talented people in the business from that era. The fact that he's being used like that, I'm more than okay with it. Plus, he's more comfortable in that role and more adept at it than someone like a Tony Khan would, who's still just in a relative sense, still getting his feet wet. Am I making sense?
Oh, I agree on that one. And yeah, just I was just gonna call it like it was when you described Tony Khan, I'm just like just the lovable goofball that he is. Because nothing like just being thrown down a ramp and just rolling, rolling, rolling. Got to keep on rolling. But we're not at that match yet. Uh,
That's the
uh,
next up, yeah.
uh, well, actually, Mercedes and Willow is next, but all we could say on that one is just it's good. It's like very interesting now. We have a reason for Willow not to get involved with the whole Chris Statlander turn at the end,
Mhm.
a post match. But when it comes to the Christopher Daniels thing, I do agree with you on having him be basically the avatar for Tony Khan, because it's good to have Tony Khan not be an actual on-screen character. Uh I'm not a fan of the Acclaimed being involved. It's the same problem that I had with Swerve Strickland's feud of him fighting Christian Cage for the world title, which all I can really say on that one was good match, straight good storytelling of how they got rid of Prince Nana, and then eventually how they got rid of the patriarchy. Straight and to the point. Now we're on to a much better feud with Will Ospreay. Uh, uh, with that, it's, I'm just not, because I am now not a fan of the Acclaimed anymore. I think the Acclaimed has just all like lost intrigue for me. I just feel like, oh, you really can't think of anyone better to face against your corporate heel team than the Acclaimed. But that's honestly just me. I don't know if you feel it. I think you probably feel different than I do, at least on this one. But ever since Billy Gunn squashed Jay White, I'm just not a fan. I was like lost all interest of the Acclaimed.
Uh yeah, that's is again, I can't say that I'm just like you're totally wrong and I'm all absolutely on fire for that decision. It's just more like, yeah, wrestling's weird sometimes. Sometimes these things happen. Eh, do I care for it? Eh. Does it really bother me? Eh. It's like I don't mind it, but I'm not going to defend it either. I'm not going to die on that hill. Like it doesn't
Also,
bother me, and the reason why I'm okay with the Acclaimed as a whole stepping up was mostly because that I still read the Acclaimed as an AEW original, quote unquote, so that if there's some teams or individuals that want to really defend AEW, it doesn't seem implausible to me that the Acclaimed, as we know them, would be in the mix somewhere.
how is Billy Gunn? Now I'm just thinking about it. Is Billy Gunn considered an AEW original? Like, has he been there from the beginning? I don't
I'm not
remember.
really thinking of him. I'm thinking more of the Acclaimed.
That's
Well,
fair.
Daddy Ass did bring in the guns
Mm,
relatively early on, but really, I'm thinking more in terms of just like Max Caster and Anthony Bowens.
that's fair.
That Yeah,
Okay.
those two in particular, those strike me as AEW originals, and it seems plausible that they could really step up.
I just also find it just hilarious. It's just like, oh, do you have against uh the Elite? Is just another team that I don't recall seeing them on any. Maybe they've been on Rampage, if anything. But it's also like just for me personally, the last time I saw these guys to get these guys in a big angle is just them losing the trios title to the Bang Bang Gang or Black Bullet Club Gold, and it just throws in that same argument that I had of them choosing Team Elite, just the guys who last time we saw them, they're losing big matches. So it was like, oh, you just got more kayfabe losers to take on this group that has been on just this big high momentum. Again, that's just storyline telling on my end, but I could be missing something because I don't even watch Rampage that much anymore, if at all. So if they've been on Rampage, then I completely missed that. But it's just showings like, okay, well, they're technically still on TV, but it's on a show that really no one really watches. It's more background. It's like, oh, we're gonna put wrestling on as background noise than anything.
Hmm.
Rampage has become their equivalent to Dark.
Which, by the way, I still do miss Dark. I thought that was a great concept.
It was basically
But,
highlighting the stars and having them beat jobbers. That is a good time. Which, to
and
be fair,
not
our
just
friend Lou
that,
Bruno was one of those people.
I was
So
gonna say it's not just jobbing, it's also just showing off just like cheap local talent that they can just like, oh hey, here's a up and coming local talent that you may have heard of. Go check him out. Like our guy Lou Bruno, who again, you go back and watch that match back. That's not your typical, that's
mm,
not a jobbing match. It's a
it
short
kind of
match,
was. It kind of
but
was. He didn't really get that
he
much
stepped to
offense, and
Lance
then he
Archer.
yeah, but the only highlight that he really had in that match was just him talking shit to Jake the Snake, and then Lance Archer eats him.
Well, even so, like that is not, that
At
didn't
least he
read
got the
like a
time.
typical jobber. That didn't, that was not, that was okay. Let's put it this way: even if he was doing the job, he, that was not a squash. Let's, how about that?
I'll give it that. It
There
wasn't a
you go.
squash, but I really would have
AEW
loved to have
Dark
seen
was
an
still
actual
novel.
match.
Boom.
I still would love to have actually seen a real match between Lance Archer and Lou Bruno. That would have been a fun match. And I think it actually would have been good showing him in front of like a big what's I'm trying to I guess I can't really say mainstream, it's just a television
National
audience,
audience,
a national
national
audience.
television audience. Yeah.
That's better. That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that, but that is also a conversation to be fleshed out another time. Because at the end of the day, we also closed out the show with the Elite versus Team AEW and Anarchy in the Arena, which was way more beautifully chaotic than I ever expected it to be.
I loved every second of this match. The second that bell rang, the second we had Darby Allin's music playing, and then you have the Young Bucks. No, play our music. No, and then you have Dave said, no, play the greatest theme song of all time, and it's the final countdown. And then you have was it Matt or Nick or Nicholas, Matthew or Nicholas that said, no, cut off this music. This song is $200,000. We have a budget. That was, I was on the floor laughing. I'm like, that is just brilliant character work.
When Justin Roberts opened things up with "Welcome to the Shit Show," like
Welcome to the shit show.
we have
Yes.
no idea how literal that would be. Oh man.
I mean, one of the big things that like in the long run is like, oh, that's great. It's just having the shot of Darby Allin dunking Jack Perry in a thing of water. So when he comes out with Tony Khan later in the night, it makes sense why he looks wet. So when they finally set him on fire, he has that protective jelly on to make sure he doesn't get any serious burns. But just that visual of Jack Perry getting set on fire was just insane.
Yeah, that was, props to everyone involved for doing something incredibly ballsy and stupid. Like real fire, cry me a river. Like if anyone's gonna do something stupid like that, it's gonna be Jack Perry at this point. Like, what's it gonna do? Like, CM Punk is going to burst out of the wall and put him in another chokehold for setting himself on fire. Like when Darby Allin is right there and he's friends with Darby, who's done just as stupid things. Like
Hell, in
that.
this one, he gets upside down and super kicked in the face with two Reebok shoes that have thumbtacks on, and that pretty much kills him for the rest of the match. And you're just basically seeing a dead Darby Allin just hanging upside down to the point where you have the audience, please help Darby, please
Meanwhile,
help Darby.
Meanwhile, Darby doing a Pinata impression is probably one of the easier points of his night. Like, yeah, I'm just chilling up here. I'm just swinging back and forth. Like, I'm not getting physically harmed anymore. I'm doing
After getting
okay.
kicked in the face with a thumbtack covered shoe. Oof. Did you see the pictures of that? Ugh. Of the aftermath for him? Ugh.
At least it's
Or
not the exploding shoe anymore. I'm glad they're not
no,
bringing
we
that
got an
back.
exploding chair. Who
Oof.
got the hit? Who got hit with the exploding chair? Was it Danielson?
All I know is it wasn't Darby.
Yeah. Which, yeah, Jack Perry pinning Danielson, biggest win of his career. Hand like tip my hat to that kid. Good for him. I'm so happy for him right now. Let him continue this momentum. I was on that train of just give him the TNT title because just give every member of the elite a title because
Oh,
this crowd is
something is
great.
something's absolutely coming Jack Perry's way at some
Oh,
point.
I think he's winning. I think he's going to win the TNT title in this tournament that Christopher Daniels made. I think he's going to win it.
And now that you said that, I think he's absolutely a front runner. But yeah, we'll have to see how that all goes. But at the end of the day, that I don't think you can come up with an absolute crazier way to end a show like this.
Hmm.
It was it was a long night of wrestling, but it was an absolutely crazy one capped off with that. And I thought it turned out beautifully. Uh, but before we get to beard ratings, any closing thoughts on AEW Double or Nothing?
The one criticism is just the one thing that everyone says, and it is true. It was a very long show. I mean, if it wasn't for that Anarchy in the arena match, I would basically be just on the verge of falling asleep, which to be fair, there was a couple of points where I was zoning out and I'm just feeling my eyelids get heavy. But once that Anarchy in the Arena came on, it woke me the hell up. I was having the time of my life. And I'm going to use this to transition into my facial hair rating because throughout the entire show, I'm like, this is honestly a great show. At the time we were watching it, I was very upset with the Takeshita Moxley stuff, but now with that gone out of the way, like with now my views on that changing, I this was just such an amazing show. I can't think of anything really bad to say about it. And with my with my rating, I guess this just answers the question which show that I think was the more entertaining show, which I'm going to make it perfectly clear right now. I loved both of these shows. These were both great, different styles of professional wrestling television that just makes me hungry for more. But with that being said, I loved this one. I just love Double or Nothing a little more. I'm actually going to give it a go face 5 out of 5. I like before that Anarchy in the Arena match, it was going to be a solid 4. I was having a great time. Again, I was tired. I was starting to really feel the length. But then the Anarchy in the Arena match started, and I was basically I felt like a kid again watching professional wrestling, and I'm just loving every single second of it. And it made me look forward to what was gonna happen on Dynamite with the return to MJF, which sucks that didn't happen with now Will Ospreay and Swerve fighting for the world title, which I want to see Ospreay be a double champion. I loved every second of this. We even got a fucking resolution for who attacked Mercedes Monet with Sky Blue, which I feel like that was kind of tacked in because they're like, oh yeah, we have this storyline. We have this unresolved storyline. Let's just throw in this because we are refusing to actually turn Mercedes Monet heel. We have a reason for Willow Nightingale to be not involved with this story. But yeah, everything just felt right. You could have taken a couple of matches out to just cut down the time. Like Cassidy, I can't even really say that. I would say maybe the FTW title could have been a Dynamite main event or something. But that's just me. But I'm gonna get solid five, solid goat face, 5 out of 5. I had so much fun with this. This was a great show for me. Great, both of them were great shows for me.
I agree with that. However, I also agree that the show was ridiculously long. And honestly, that is the only reason why I would dock this show a point. So I am also going to give this one. I gave King Queen of the Ring 4 out of 5 full beard. So I'm going to give the same rating to AEW Double or Nothing. Like you, 4 out of 5 full beard. Like you said, two very different styles of wrestling, two very different styles of wrestling shows, and as incredible and stacked as AEW pay-per-view cards are, and as good as the matches are, some of the show is just really, really long and they can be endurance tests, even for people who love AEW like we do. But that all that being said, what's left over? Still, an incredible show, a very high quality show with great matches. And I couldn't, even though I don't share your same exact feelings on the matter, my interpretation is still a little bit different. I cannot, in good conscience, give this show anything less than a 4 out of 5 star full beard rating.
That's fair. That's perfectly fair.
Well, good, because it's my opinion, and there's not really too
I'm
much
not
debating that.
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because you're not, because that it's a very, like I said, both shows, though very different, both were just extremely entertaining. And it just makes me happy that these products, even if one is more gaining more momentum popularity wise than the other, both of them are just doing very well to the point where, okay, I won't say they're both doing well. Now, the report coming out with Tony Khan pretty much pulling a Vince McMahon and just rewriting scripts, at least for the weekly television shows, is kind of unsettling. I hope that this is just a fad and a phase, and he just, please don't become Vince McMahon, Tony. Please, for the love of God, don't become Vince McMahon 2019, because
I really don't.
those were dark ages.
I really don't think it's gonna come down to that. I seriously don't. Uh, that was not my understanding of the reports and rumors and scuttlebutt that I read. And even if there is somewhat truth to it, it certainly won't go to the same extent that it did with Vince McMahon. Not by a long shot, just by sheer virtue of the fact that Vince McMahon is very much his own weird, bizarre, psycho creature. It it just isn't going to happen. Not to the same extent. No way.
I really hope you're right, because that's the last thing we need. Because yes, I do agree it won't go to the extreme of Vince McMahon, but it is that point where you have your talent venting frustrations, even like with people like Soraya posting a tweet and deleting it, just be like, okay, I got a lot on my mind. And with the word going in, with the reports saying that people are getting really frustrated at that shit, I hope that shit dies quickly.
In a case like this, I'm going to opt for the general tone that you see from people reading in between the lines and actual wrestlers who are working for AEW. I'm going to take them at face value when they say things just like the stupidest crap gets overblown way too much. And I'm really hesitant to ascribe any hard meaning to anything, because there's still a lot of hard facts that are just left they're just not present at the current moment. So I really can't get I think not only can we not really put hedge our bets behind something substantial at the moment, it's almost to a point where I feel like it would be irresponsible to do so. Like we're getting so wrapped up in half truths that are certainly not the full story. And even if there is some sharpening up that does need to occur behind the scenes, which for the record, I think there absolutely is. Like no company is perfect. And AEW, relatively speaking, is still very much the new kid on the block here. Even in spite of all that, we need to take all of these things worth a grain of salt until something more definitive is announced and or confirmed. So, do we know what that all that stuff was about definitively? No, of course not. And just due to that one fact alone, I really don't think we don't have anything credible to really zero in on. So it's in my mind, it's not worth worrying about too much. At least not yet until we get something.
But it is still something to worry about.
Mm.
Not
I
not to an
don't
extreme yet.
agree. Like there's so
I'm
much
I
information that like it's almost impossible to know how to weight and weigh any of this. Like certain things have credibility, certain things are far more serious and heinous, like everything happening with Vince McMahon outside of WWE now. That is really heavy. It is real and very severe for the company as a whole. Everything else that like that happening with AEW, it's still just rumors and hearsay. And until it becomes more than that, there isn't enough credibility for any sort of serious danger in my mind. Like if there is a very serious issue in terms of rumors and scuttlebutt, AEW is kind of a leaky faucet at the moment. I wish it weren't so, but if there's going to be leaks, then if slash when something occurs, we're all going to collectively know about it, and we'll know when it's time to start worrying. Am
Mhm.
I making sense?
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't fully agree with you because I'm not gonna be as optimistic as you are about it. Because I'm still gonna be very cautious on just what reports come out to the to a point where, okay, Tony, you're starting to go down a dark path. Please don't.
Oh,
This is
believe
just
me.
now me saying it to him. Please don't.
Yeah.
Not
If
to an extreme of what Vince McMahon. He's not just walking up and just be like, "Oh, this is your story. Rip, rip, rip." I don't think it's going to be to that extent and to the extent of Vince is like, "Oh, we're going to have this match." But Vince, we did this exact same match last week. Same exact. Oh, we're going to do it. That's just good shit. I don't think it's going to go that far, but it's still just you're still bringing your talent in and they don't know what they're doing if they're going to be doing anything at all. That's something that should not be happening. And I hope that whatever this is going on just stops to the point where we're gonna get some not good television compared to certain things that we're getting now.
yeah, I don't think all I'm suggesting is that there's still as much as we do know, or much as we think we know, there's still a lot in terms of specifics that we just simply don't yet. And
Mm-hmm.
until we know the very nature of it, as well as the extent of it, I really don't think there's enough cause to be alarmed to that same extent. Not like the when it happened with WWE, when not only was the extent more definitively known, but it was also repeated time after time after time. And it wasn't just chalked up to just rumors, hearsay, and a very vague tweet. There was evidence and reports and stories after incident after incident. Let's put it this way, when it happened under the Vince McMahon regime, it was the evidence suggested that Vince was just a crazy control freak, which we know him to be, especially now. With whatever we hear in terms of just because of the intensity and the setting that AEW is in right now,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to take it more as growing pains than anything else. because in my mind, AEW more than anything else is it is still in a lot of ways in a very transitional period right now. When Vince is doing something, he's a control freak. When Tony Khan is doing something like this, no pun intended, he is under the learning tree. He is experiencing those growing pains of learning how to be a full-time booker and a promoter and chief operating officer, CEO, whatever other titles and job responsibilities he's got. It's a whole other very unique business. He's still learning how to navigate it properly. Is he going to make mistakes? Of course. The only difference between him and Vince McMahon is not all of these things will become habit.
Mm-hmm. I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too. But anyway, those are our opinions. We can speak at great length of them from now until the end of time, and we will. But now is the time in our show where we turn it over to you, our fellow fans. What do you think of this whole situation backstage at AEW? How much should we be panicking? If not, then when? What's the metric? And also, what did you think of AEW Double or Nothing? Did you like that more than King and Queen of the Ring? Who won the week? No matter what you think, we want to hear it all from you. So leave us a comment all across the internet, YouTube comments, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, or you can also do our favorite thing and join in the conversation personally on Twitter/X/ whatever the hell you want to call it. And if you want to join the conversation, cool. Where can they reach you?
You can reach me enjoying my time with Goldie and believing in Joe Hendry at the Avataric.
And you can
Well,
and you can find me digging up all of the old promo songs from Joe Hendry all throughout the past decade at I'm Robbie Rage.
I look forward to seeing those.
Oh yeah, I'll send you more later. That's a conversation for another time. We're going to be following every single little bit of it because you know who we are. We are the scholars of wrestling, and you have just been schooled. You're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
See you all next time for more Wrestling Worlds.